All right, so are you ready to dive into this whole Canadian dream thing? It's kind of a hot topic right now. Like, why are people leaving Canada? You know, it's always seen as this land of opportunity, right?
Yeah.
Today, we've got a couple sources. One is this online video. It's like personal stories of Canadians who are facing some serious challenges. And then we've got this news report. It highlights a study about rising immigration rates. It's
It really does make you think, doesn't it?
Yeah, like what's the deal? Canada has this image of, prosperity, welcoming arms, but then what's pushing people away?
Yeah, so what's the reality behind that image?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what we're here to figure out. Like, uncover those factors that are driving people away. And also, like, what does it mean for Canada's future? Maybe this will even make you think about your own dream and how it all fits in.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's intriguing stuff. So let's kick things off by looking at what the video tells us about this demographic shift happening in Canada. It highlights how Prime Minister Trudeau's policies have led to this big increase in immigration, especially from India. But it's not just about the numbers, is it?
No, not at all. It gets into how this wave of people is impacting those who are already here. Both people born in Canada and those who immigrated earlier. One thing that really jumped out at me was this whole idea of wage suppression.
Yeah, that's a crucial point. We need to look at that closely.
Yeah.
The video suggests that with this bigger pool of skilled workers coming in, companies are able to offer lower wages.
Yeah.
Which obviously impacts everyone in the workforce, right?
Right. So does that then affect the Canadian dream for those who are coming here for a better life?
Yeah, it does.
Is it even attainable anymore if you can't make a decent living?
Exactly.
And speaking of attainable, can we talk about this housing crisis? The video shows this insane Vancouver listing. 6 beds crammed into one room, separated by dividers, for $325 a month. I know, it's crazy.
That's wild. What's interesting, though, is how it ties directly back to the influx of immigrants we were just talking about. It's basic supply and demand. More people needing housing,
Yeah.
but the same limited supply. And this isn't just an economic issue. It has this ripple effect, on mental health, social mobility, even political stability when people are struggling to find a place to live.
It's like a domino effect,
Yeah.
You can't help but feel for those who are squeezed into these crazy living situations. And it's not just Vancouver either. The video highlights this stat that really hit me hard. Over 2 million Canadians relying on food banks in a single month. That's just crazy.
Yeah, that's pretty alarming. That really speaks to a deeper issue, doesn't it? The cost of living is going through the roof, but wages aren't keeping up. The video even calls it hidden poverty. Think about it. People working full-time jobs, struggling to even put food on the table. What does that say about the promise of a good life in Canada?
Right. Yeah, it makes you think. Then they share this story about a healthcare worker. She's been in the field for over 25 years, yet she's living in a van because she can't afford rent. What's the point of working so hard if you can't even afford a roof over your head?
Yeah, it's a tough situation for sure.
Yeah.
And, this whole van life thing, where people are choosing or being forced to live in vans, it's like a symptom of this much larger societal issue. It's is this a sign that people are adapting to a broken system? Or is it a warning sign that our traditional support systems are failing?
It's definitely a sign of something. And on top of all of this, there's the issue of Canada's aging population. The video dives into how this is putting a strain on healthcare and social programs. They pointed out that back in 1971, there were 7 working-age people for every senior citizen. That ratio has shrunk drastically. By 2012, it was down to 4, and they're predicting only 2 workers per retiree by 2036.
Wow.
That's pretty scary.
That's a huge shift. And it has significant implications for sure. As fewer people are supporting a larger aging population, it puts this immense strain on social systems and government budgets. It raises some tough questions, right? How do we ensure the care of our aging population while also maintaining a strong economy that allows people to thrive?
Right. And then the video brings up this concept of reverse migration, where immigrants who came to Canada looking for a better life are actually going back to their home countries. They're disillusioned with the reality they're facing here. It's even sparking a new kind of entrepreneurship, with people starting businesses to help others relocate back home.
That's interesting. So it's we're seeing the push and pull factors of migration at play. People are initially drawn to Canada, pulled by that promise of opportunity and a better life. But then when that promise isn't fulfilled, and they're met with economic hardship and limited prospects, the push factors become stronger, the things driving them away.
Right. So what's the government doing about all of this? The video mentions that they're proposing to decrease immigration levels to try to ease some of the pressure on housing and the job market. But there's also this skepticism about whether that'll really address the deeper problems.
Yeah, it's a tough spot for the government. They want to attract skilled workers and maintain a growing population. But they also need to respond to the concerns of those who are already here and who are feeling the negative impacts of rapid immigration. It's a delicate balance, and any solution has the potential for unintended consequences.
Right. Speaking of consequences, let's bring in that news report about the immigration study. It found that 17.5% of immigrants who came to Canada between 1980 and 2000 left within 20 years. And the rate of immigration has been steadily increasing since the 1980s.
Really?
Makes you wonder if Canada is losing its appeal.
It does. This study is definitely a key piece of the puzzle. But we have to remember that every study has its limitations. We need more research to really understand what's going on. Where are these immigrants going? What are their reasons for leaving? Is it purely economics, or are there social and cultural factors involved?
It's a lot to think about, isn't it? So far, we've uncovered some pretty serious challenges that Canada's facing. A struggling economy, a housing crisis, strain on the social safety net, and a growing number of people, both those born here and immigrants, who are feeling disillusioned. And it seems like the government's having a hard time finding solutions that truly address these issues. But wait, there's more.
Yeah, you know what's really striking about all of this is that it challenges how we think about developed countries. You know, we often see places like Canada as immune to these sorts of problems.
Right.
But clearly that's not the case.
Yeah, it's like they say the first world has its problems too. And these problems aren't unique to Canada. We're seeing similar things in other developed countries. Rising inequality, housing affordability crises, increasing political polarization. Seems like a global thing.
Yeah, it is. You're absolutely right. And that's why it's so crucial to understand. It's not just about Canada. It's about recognizing the broader challenges that are facing the world today.
Yeah.
We live in a world that's becoming increasingly interconnected, and these issues go beyond borders.
So if we zoom out and look at the bigger picture, what does this trend of people leaving Canada, this gap between perception and reality, tell us about the global landscape? Is the world changing?
I think it highlights a shift in how we view opportunity. For decades, the narrative was that developed countries like Canada offer the best path to a good life, stability, economic prosperity, strong social safety nets. But now, those systems are strained. The cost of living keeps rising. That narrative is being challenged.
Right. It's almost like we're seeing a leveling of the playing field, but not in a good way. Like instead of everyone rising to a higher standard of living, it feels like the developed world is experiencing a downward pressure.
That's a very sharp observation.
Yeah.
And it leads to a crucial question. What will replace that old narrative of opportunity? Where will people go to find a fulfilling life in the coming decades? Will be emerging economies, alternative lifestyles, or something we haven't even thought of yet?
It's kind of exciting and unsettling at the same time. You know, it's great to see more parts of the world developing and offering new opportunities. But it's also concerning to see those places we once thought of as beacons of stability and prosperity facing such big challenges.
It is. And that's exactly why these conversations are so important. We need to be open and honest about these trends, recognize how complex they are, and work together to find solutions that address the root causes, not just the symptoms.
Right. It's not about blaming anyone, but about understanding the forces at play and working together to create a more equitable and sustainable future for everyone, no matter where they choose to live.
Couldn't agree more. And this is where you, the listener, come in. You have the power to stay informed, to participate in these discussions, and to demand better from your leaders and institutions. The future isn't set in stone. It's shaped by the choices we make collectively.
So to wrap up this part of our deep dive, we've explored some pretty stark realities about Canada, economic hardships, a housing crisis, strain on the social safety net, and a growing exodus of people who are disillusioned with what they thought Canada would be. But within these challenges, there's an opportunity for reflection and action. What are your takeaways?
This isn't just a Canadian story, it's a global one. By understanding these trends, we can better navigate the changing landscape of opportunity and work towards building a more resilient future for ourselves and generations to come.
So we'll leave you with this. What role will you play in shaping that future? Stick with us as we continue this deep dive in part 2. We'll be exploring the potential long-term consequences of these trends and what they could mean for Canada's future.
Yeah, that is a powerful question. You know, what role will you play? And it becomes even more important when you think about the potential long-term consequences of everything we've talked about.
Yeah, it's a lot to think about. So where do we go from here? What's next for Canada if these trends just keep going?
Well, one concern is what happens to Canada's economic competitiveness. If skilled workers are leaving because wages are being suppressed and housing is so expensive, it could lead to a brain drain. And that would make it harder for businesses to innovate and grow.
And it's not just businesses that suffer, right? If fewer people can earn a good living, it puts more pressure on social safety nets, which are already stretched thin by the aging population. It's like a vicious cycle.
It is. It's a cycle that could lead to a decline in the quality of public services, like healthcare and education, longer wait times, fewer resources, just a lower standard of living overall. It's a slippery slope.
Yeah, it's like the whole idea of the Canadian dream is becoming harder and harder to achieve for so many. What was once seen as this beacon of hope and opportunity now feels more like a struggle for survival.
And that shift in perception can have major consequences. It could lead to increased social unrest, political instability, even a decline in civic engagement as people become more disillusioned with the system.
So what can we do to turn things around? Is there a way to revitalize the Canadian dream and make it real for more people?
Well, it's a complex issue. There's no easy fix. But one thing's for sure, we need to take a more holistic approach to immigration policy. It's not just about numbers. It's about making sure that newcomers have the support they need to successfully integrate and contribute to the economy.
So things like language training, job placement services, affordable housing options, things that would help them get on their feet and really thrive.
Exactly. And we also need to tackle the root causes of these challenges. Things like income inequality, the crazy housing market, and the strain on public services. These are systemic issues that need long-term solutions.
One thing that really stood out to me in that video was the sense of frustration among Canadians. They feel like their voices aren't being heard, like the government isn't doing enough to fix these problems.
Yeah, that feeling of disconnect is dangerous. It can lead to apathy and cynicism. People just giving up. People need to feel like they have a stake in the future, like their concerns matter.
So how do we bridge that gap? How do we empower people to feel like they can actually shape the future of their country?
It starts with open and honest dialogue, like the conversation we're having right now. Creating spaces where people can share their experiences, voice their concerns, and work together to find solutions.
So it's not about just complaining about the problems, it's about being proactive about finding solutions.
Right. And there's so many ways to get involved. It could be advocating for policy changes, volunteering in your community, supporting local businesses, or even just talking to your friends and family about these issues. Every action, no matter how small, can make a difference.
I love that. It's a good reminder that even with all these challenges, we have the power to create our own future.
We do. And it's a future worth fighting for. A future where the Canadian dream isn't just some slogan, but a reality for all Canadians.
Now that's a powerful vision. But before we get carried away, there's one more thing I want to touch on. We spent a lot of time talking about the challenges, but what about the opportunities? Are there any silver linings to this whole situation?
I'm glad you brought that up. Because in the midst of all these difficulties, there are opportunities for growth and innovation. For instance, the influx of immigrants is bringing new perspectives, skills, and entrepreneurial energy to Canada.
Right. They're starting businesses, creating jobs, adding to the cultural richness of the country. It's like this wave of energy and creativity.
Exactly. And this diversity can be a real strength, especially in today's globalized world. It allows Canada to tap into a wider pool of talent and ideas, making it more competitive globally.
So instead of just seeing immigration as a problem to be solved, we should also see it as an opportunity to be embraced.
Exactly. It's about finding that balance between addressing the concerns of those already here, while also welcoming newcomers and building a society that thrives on diversity and inclusivity.
Sounds like a tall order, but it's definitely something worth working towards. This whole conversation has made me really think about my own role in all of this. It's making me see that even small actions can make a difference.
And that's a powerful realization, because collective change really does start with individual action. Every choice we make, every conversation we have, every action we take, it all has a ripple effect and impacts the world around us.
It's that butterfly effect, right? Like a tiny butterfly flapping its wings can eventually cause a hurricane on the other side of the planet.
Precisely. And even though we may not see the immediate results of our actions, they can have huge consequences down the line. It's all about planting those seeds for a better future.
So what can our listeners do to plant those seeds? What specific things can they do to address these challenges and help create a brighter future for Canada?
It all starts with staying informed. Do your research, read articles, listen to podcasts like this one, and learn about the issues facing Canada. The more you understand, the better equipped you'll be to make good decisions and take meaningful action.
So it's about going beyond just the headlines and getting a deeper understanding of these issues.
Absolutely. And once you have a better grasp of things, you can start talking to others. Have conversations with your friends and family. Join online forums, attend community meetings, and connect with organizations that are working on these issues.
So it's not just about educating ourselves, it's also about sharing that knowledge and finding solutions together.
Right. And there are so many ways to get involved. You could volunteer your time or skills, donate to organizations that share your values, or even spread awareness through social media. Everything helps.
It's about finding what speaks to you and using your own talents and passions to make a difference.
And remember, it's not about being perfect or having all the answers. It's about showing up, doing what you can, and being part of the solution.
That's a good point. It can be overwhelming to think about these huge issues, but we need to remember that every little bit counts.
It does, and it's a journey, not a sprint. We're all learning and growing together. The key is to keep moving forward, keep working towards a better future.
That's a great transition to our final part of this deep dive. We've looked at the challenges, we've discussed the opportunities. Now it's time to talk about solutions and how we can all be part of creating a brighter future for Canada. Stay tuned for our final thoughts in part 3. All right, so we've talked about a lot in this deep dive, like why people are leaving Canada, the challenges the country's up against, and even some potential bright spots. But the big question now is, what do we do about all of this?
Yeah, it's the million-dollar question, right?
Yeah.
It can feel pretty overwhelming. Like, where do we even start with these huge, complicated issues?
Exactly. Like, does anything we do even really matter? But you said before that collective change starts with each of us doing something. So how do we make that happen? How do we go from feeling helpless to actually making a difference?
I think the first thing is to change how we think about it. Instead of focusing on what we can't do, let's focus on what we can. Like, even little things can create a ripple effect. It's about planting seeds for a better future.
Okay, I like that, planting seeds. So what kind of seeds can we plant? What are some practical things we can actually do?
One of the most important things is to stay informed. Keep learning about the issues, have those tough conversations. And don't be afraid to question your own beliefs. Don't just take everything you hear at face value. Dig deeper and try to see things from different perspectives.
So it's not just about reading the news, it's about really thinking critically about the information we're taking in and forming our own opinions.
Exactly. Once you've done that, start sharing what you've learned. Talk to your friends and family. Get into those healthy debates online. Use your voice to get people thinking.
That makes sense. But sometimes it feels like people just talk in circles, rehashing the same arguments over and over without actually getting anywhere. How do we move beyond just talking and start actually doing something?
There are tons of ways to take action. And it doesn't have to be some big grand gesture. It can be as simple as supporting local businesses, volunteering in your community, or donating to organizations that are fighting for things you believe in.
So it's about finding what resonates with you and doing something that feels right for you.
Absolutely. And get creative. There are so many ways to make a difference. Organize a community event. Start a petition. Write to your elected officials. Or even just use your wallet to support businesses that are doing good in the world.
It's about realizing we all have a role to play, and every little bit counts.
Right. And as you get more involved, you might find yourself connecting with other people who are passionate about the same things. And that's when things can really start to change. Collective action is powerful.
Like they say, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
Exactly. And I think that's a great takeaway from this whole conversation. This journey to a better Canada, a better world, it's something we have to do together. We all have to play our part. And by working together, we can create the kind of future we want to see.
So to everyone listening, we challenge you to take that first step. Stay informed, talk to each other, and find ways to take action in a way that feels right for you. Remember, every seed you plant has the potential to grow into something amazing.
And don't ever underestimate your own ability to make a difference. The future is in our hands.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We hope it's given you some food for thought and inspired you to make a difference. And until next time, keep exploring, keep asking those tough questions, and keep pushing for a better world.